to the Camino Cafe podcast. I'm Lee Brennan, your host. Today's special guest is Dr. Kristina Jacobsen. She is a professional singer and songwriter and an associate professor of the departments of music and anthropology at the University of New Mexico. Not only is she a pilgrim, but she is also leading singer and songwriting retreats combined with walking the Camino. This interview includes a few at-home recorded songs to give you a preview of just a few of Kristina's Camino-inspired songs, as well as a song written and performed by two participants from the most recent Camino Singer-Songwriter Workshop. During the interview itself, I play a few clips from three featured songs: Life at 3 Miles an Hour, Desert in the Storm, and I Am a Pilgrim. The full versions of all three are played in their entirety following the interview. Links to Kristina's website are in the show notes in case you want to check out her music and the next Camino retreat she's leading this October of 2024. Before we jump into the chat with Kristina, let's hear a 30-second clip of her song, Life at 3 Miles an Hour.
Guided by the yellow arrow, clicking of sticks, keeping time to my heart. Soar, feel high.
Kristina, welcome to the Camino Cafe podcast. I'm thrilled to have you finally on. Thank you for being so patient with my schedule. I have been so excited to talk to you since Bill Arts told me all about the songwriting workshop that he attended with you at the American Pilgrims on the Camino gathering last year. So let's start there. You did a songwriting workshop there.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's wonderful to be here. I attended my first annual gathering of pilgrims last spring in Lake Tahoe, and I was asked to teach a songwriting workshop. And so I had a number of pilgrims show up, and I paired them in groups of two and gave them a prompt. And they wrote some really beautiful songs, including Bill. So it was a pretty life-giving thing to get to do. And so people came with little fragments and pieces of poems and things that they wanted to put to sound. It was a really, really cool moment to get to facilitate that for so many pilgrims last year.
Yeah, well, I know Bill was just really complimenting everything you did. And he's like, you have got to speak to Kristina. She must be on the podcast. So he absolutely adored the session you led. And of course, everyone loved it, so much so that you're coming back to American Pilgrims on the Camino gathering, which will be in San Antonio here in March. What will be the title of your workshop there?
Yeah, I'm doing another songwriting workshop, so very similar to the one that I did last year, except this is a double header. So it's going to be twice as long. So we'll have more time to kind of go into some of the nuts and bolts of songwriting and hopefully finish a song. Fingers crossed. So that's the intention. And then I'm also playing a show with my duo. So we go by the name Heartstrings, and it's my bandmate Dare Obenchain, who's an Appalachian fiddler and phenomenal musician and harmony singer. And so on Thursday night at the annual gathering, we're going to be the featured performers on that very first night. So we'll be playing songs. Yeah, we'll be playing songs from the Camino, songs that I wrote there, and sort of telling a story of Camino songs in a live performance.
Oh, I'm super excited to see that. That's going to be fantastic. Well, let's back up a little bit and introduce you a little more properly to everyone. You are a professor at the University of New Mexico. Can you give us just a really brief bio of what led you to the point of where you are right now in your career?
Sure. So I'm an associate professor of songwriting and anthropology at the University of New Mexico. And I've taught here for about 10 years, and I run the songwriting program at the University of New Mexico. I'm an anthropologist and I'm a singer-songwriter. And so I came into the academy sort of doing both of those things. And then I'm very lucky to be in a position where I get to sort of teach my two deepest passions. So learning how to do ethnographic fieldwork, and also how to write songs, and how to guide creative process for students and community members here. Originally, I came out to the Southwest to live and work on the Navajo Nation and learn the Navajo language, and that's what brought me out here. And then, long story short, I ended up doing a dissertation about Diné or Navajo country western bands, and I was playing the lap steel guitar and touring with them all around Navajo Nation, and that became my dissertation and then my first book. So my ties to the Southwest are very linked to Diné communities and to the Navajo Nation in my capacity as a non-native guest living out here.
Wow. So where were you born originally?
I was born in Western Massachusetts. I was born in the Berkshires in a little town called Great Barrington.
Okay. All right. And
Yeah,
then you made across out to the west.
as a teenager. Yeah,
Wow. Fascinating. So let's get to how did the Camino come into your life? You did your first walk in 2022, is that right?
yeah.
How
I
did
did my
that come
first.
about?
So really, my partner was has always wanted to walk the Camino. It was on his bucket list, and so he walked the first part by himself. Started in Saint Jean, and then I joined him in Burgos. So essentially, he invited me to join him on his Camino, and I felt pretty reticent, and I felt a little grouchy about it, and I really didn't know how I felt about it. and then I started
What made you
walking.
grouchy? Yeah, what made you
Um,
grouchy about it?
Oh, I think all the unknowns, right? Like all the different anxieties that can sort of come to us when we're doing something that's out of our comfort zone, And so the first week I was a pretty grouchy walker, and then I started leaning into it and kind of breathing and slowing down. I'd been on tour before that, so I'd had a pretty frenetic schedule, so it was partly just like realigning myself and slowing down and getting
Mm.
into the rhythm and the pace of the walking and letting that be my entire world, right? For the time that I was walking. And so by about week 3, I hit my sweet spot in the sense of, whoa, okay, this is amazing. And I started writing a lot of songs. And I had my little I don't know if you can see it behind me, but I had my little orange ukulele
Oh
strapped over
yeah.
my backpacks because it's really lightweight. It weighs about half a pound. And so I would put it on my front side with my pack on the back, and I would walk and write songs. And yeah, so it was really generative as an artist. And then we became what we called in-betweeners. So we learned that we didn't love the large albergues, and instead, we sort of chose the places in between and formed our own really beautiful community of folks that were also doing the same thing. So that sort of became our tribe while we were on the Camino. And
Right.
yeah.
So, so your partner says, I've been wanting to do this my whole life. Why don't you meet me part way? And at that point, did you know anything about the Camino other than what they had shared?
Yeah, I'd done we'd started we did do training before we went, and we kind of but I think it's interesting. Like I was invited as a guest on his Camino, right? And it was and so he wanted to walk part of it on his own, which I think was really, really important. And so it's like it took a while for it to become my own, right? And this whole idea that everyone walks their own Camino, but like, oh, what does that look like? Like, it's not going to look like it does for him or for anyone else on it. So like leaning into that, I'm a huge lover of food, for example. So like leaning into the foods on the Camino, and then leaning into it as an artist, and then leaning into it as an anthropologist and as an ethnographer, like in Galicia in particular, like all of these women run farms and just like the economics of the region. And I mean, it's really, really amazing. Yeah, so all of that kind of, I guess, went into becoming what became my own Camino. Wow.
I'm fascinated about this process, this transformation that occurred in that 3 weeks where you go from grouchy walker to
Yeah.
what you just described. What do you think happened? What caused this transformation during those
Um,
3 weeks?
well, I'm co-teaching a songwriting class this semester with this amazing social worker who does a lot of trauma-informed work. And one of the things that they talk about is the importance of right, left, right, left, and sort of our body moving through time and space as a regulating mechanism that brings us back, right, to our center, to ourself, to our deepest intentions and values. So I think that the walking itself did a lot of that work. And you and I were talking earlier, I'm trained as a mindfulness teacher, and a lot of that is about regulation with breath, right? And of course, there's a technique called mindful walking, right? So
Yes.
sort of how do you walk and stay present and walk with intention? And what does that do for our nervous system? What does it do to help us re-regulate when we feel dysregulated? So I would say part of it is that I arrived feeling pretty dysregulated. You know, I'd been moving very quickly and had a lot of responsibility and pressures on me before that. And so then to sort of be able to release that slowly through the walking and then learn that my only job was to walk was pretty miraculous, right? To not have any other jobs, but
Had
just
you
to
ever
get.
done had you ever done anything like this where it was, a long hike of any sort like this? Because you do have a really busy schedule. When we were talking about, all the concerts you do, your busy teaching schedule, the workshops you do, taking the students abroad, you are a busy person. So
Yeah.
was this one of the first times where you really just slowed down as an adult?
Absolutely. In terms of, yes, certainly the longest number of days that I had walked. I think before that I'd probably done like day hikes was probably the longest that I'd done. Yeah. So it was a completely new thing in that way. Yeah. I think that I had to do it to understand the value of it, right? To understand that, like so many things, right? That it's deeply worth our time.
Right. Do you recall a
Yeah.
moment where you felt this profoundness of something happening?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the exact moment um after the Cruz de Ferro, descending down, that pretty steep, sometimes slick mountain area um after Manjarin when you're
Yes.
going into Molina Seca. But before, and I remember sort of looking down in that really green, beautiful verdant area that feels like, this beautiful green wilderness. Um, Specifically right after El Afebo, I guess it was. But I remember the moment that sort of the seed or the spark was born, not only of realizing its value, but thinking like, oh, what would it look like to take a small group of songwriters on this journey? And
Yeah.
oh, like where would we stay? And like, sort of like starting to like catalog in my own brain, like the places where I felt the most welcome and the places I would want to bring people back to, or like, oh, uh, let's see, uh like out of Santa Catalina, like there's a beautiful labyrinth where you can walk and do like mindful walking, or right, sort of seeing it through the lens, I guess, of both a teacher and an artist. So I remember when that moment started. Yeah.
Ah, down there, beautiful.
And it had a lot to do with sort of nature and the surroundings that I was in. I think especially once we got into the Bierzo, I was hooked, right? Like
Yeah.
wine country and leaving the meseta and then opening up into this expanse of green. It was like, so life-giving. Yeah.
Wow. You started writing songs then at that point?
Yeah, I had been working on one before that. Um, and which is a song called 3 Miles an Hour that sort of catalogs different towns that we were going through. But I was sort of I was doing it because I had told myself I had to do it.
You had
Like
to do
thou
it. Why?
shalt
What,
write
what was,
thou shalt write songs, like but the
but
truth
you had to be
is
productive?
yeah, there was definitely an element of that. But
Yeah.
that is sort of the moment when I guess it turned away from being work and turned to being like, oh, like what an incredible thing that I get to write songs inspired by this place and
Yeah.
inspired by our experiences.
Let's play a little bit of 3 Miles so everyone can hear it, and then we'll come back and talk about what inspired it.
Life at 3 miles an hour, sit under a tree in a July shower, sip some mountain water from the stone fountain. Stray off track for a late lunch, got a bundle in the beaches, and we make it to the next town by sundown. Living my back 3 miles an hour.
Beautiful. Okay, so do you remember where you were when you began writing the words or the melody, the music to that particular song?
So 3 Miles an Hour is a co-write with my partner, John Parrish. And I asked him to do sort of like a free write of his sense impressions of the Camino so far, and asked for permission to sort of pull from it. And then I combined those with mine. And I remember that a lot of it I wrote while we were literally walking. So it's I joke that all the songs I wrote on the Camino are all the exact same tempo because I was walking. They're all walking tempo, right? So
Well, that would be good for us to listen to as pilgrims.
yeah. And so yeah, I remember that we were walking side by side and he would sort of volley ideas to me, and I had my voice memo app going, and also WhatsApp, which is like a phenomenal tool for songwriting on many levels. And so yeah, and having the stick in one hand and kind of like trying to figure this out. Yeah, but really the idea was like, so originally the song was called 4K, or 4 kilometers an hour, because we were, of course, measuring our distance in kilometers when we were in Spain. But then for a US audience, I've switched it when I perform it here to 3 miles an hour. And the idea was just like, what work does that do for us to just slow our entire lives down to literally living our lives at 3 miles an hour? And what other benefits, what other things can we show up for? What other things can show up for us? And what things might we see more clearly? Right? I am here in Albuquerque. I don't drive a vehicle. I have a Vespa. And it's a similar thing in the sense that I see and smell so much more of my city and of the humanity around me when my senses are exposed and when I'm very vulnerable, right, on the road, for similar reasons. And so, but I think something about the consistency of just slowing ourselves down to that pace of 3 miles an hour was a really beautiful lesson for me. And in slowing down and paying attention in a very different kind of way. I remember, and I imagine this is an experience for many pilgrims, like the first time after doing that for a number of weeks that you get in a car, and then it just feels like so violent, right? Like so fast, like, whoa, this is way too fast, right? Because we've become, we've sort of lost the ways that we naturalize that. And then we have to kind of, remember that it's this thing that we've done before. But at that moment, you really notice that transition, and it feels kind of violent and feels really fast. Yeah.
Wow. Now, your partner is also a musician?
No, he's a visual artist, and he was doing a series of watercolor sketches while we were walking, that he's shared in different places. But yeah, no, so he'll feed me sort of lyrics, and then I'll take the words when we're co-writing and add the music and sort of do all of those parts. But the lyric, life at 3 miles an hour. Life at 3 miles an hour, sit under a tree in a July shower, sip some mountain water from a stone fountain, stray off track for a late lunch, garbanzos y natillas, can we make it to El Ganso by sundown, live and laugh at 3 miles an hour. Sort of the
Oh,
gist,
love
yeah.
it. Love it. I should say your songs are available on Spotify. I know your newest album is on there. Is this particular song on Spotify as well?
These ones I have not released. I have not formally released them yet. So no, they're not. My latest album, all of my albums are on Spotify. My latest was the one I released in Sardinia in 2021.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, but hopefully at a future moment.
Wonderful. I think a lot of pilgrims can definitely uh, feel like their walk definitely resonates with that song. That's really
Mm, mm, mm.
well. Let's talk a little bit about. So you finish the Camino and you arrive in Santiago. You were somewhat of a reluctant pilgrim there in the beginning, and this transformation happens literally while you're walking. You're feeling some transformation. How did it feel to actually enter the plaza at the cathedral? What went through your mind? What went through your heart?
I remember being surprised at how triumphant I felt. It was like, whoa, this is, it felt like a real arrival. It felt like I'd done something hard and I had persevered, and not just physically, sort of all of the things that we encounter when we're walking and the day in and the day out of it. So I remember feeling, yeah, a lot of joy, shared joy, at that point I was with my partner and our close friend Heinrich from Denmark. And so we arrived together. The music, of course, helped a lot, having the bagpipes. I mean, like, what a beautiful way, what a very beautiful, specific way to mark that space and that arrival, right? Like these like iconic bagpipes that so many pilgrims associate with, right? Arriving through the passageway and all of that. Yeah, so it felt really joyous.
Hmm. And then what about your return? How did it feel once you were home, and what kinds of changes occurred for you after the journey?
Mm, mm. Yeah, the return was a real challenge. The sort of all the things sort of reintegrating into our faster lives and trying to make peace with that, trying to integrate the experiences from the Camino into our everyday lives. One of the things we did is we became very, very active in our local American Pilgrims chapter here in Albuquerque. And they have, this is a shout out to American Pilgrims in our state. They have these epic potlucks with like the most amazing food and the most amazing wines, and that really helped us because it was like we had this like longing and this nostalgia for the Camino. And so to join other folks that also had done it and could share and resonate with a lot of that experience, and we would just get together. So that was really, really helpful, just to have folks that got that, right? And
Yes.
with whom the experience could resonate. And we started doing a lot more walking. We've
Hmm.
led some walks here for our local chapter in our part of the city. And so, this whole idea of walking and socializing or building community and connecting with folks through walking has sort of become a big part of my vocabulary now. And yeah, and I really, really love that.
Wow. And then that led to the idea of offering a songwriting retreat walk on the Camino, which you held the first one this past fall. So,
Yeah.
how did that? You were thinking about it obviously as you were finishing up your walk,
Hmm.
but then you got home. So, how did it get to the point where you actually ended up with a group here in Spain?
Yeah. Man, yeah, so it's called Songs of Santiago, contemplative songwriting retreat. And so we launched the first one in October. And yeah, I just felt like that it could be a really, really powerful way to make art and build community at the same time, right? Doing it with others. The retreats that I facilitate are usually built on this premise of co-writing. So rather than writing on your own, you're always writing with someone else, but it's a different person every day. And so this sort of, it's like you're building your community one person at a time, because in order to write a song in a single day, you have to share a lot of story and you have to go pretty deep, right? To sort of arrive there 8 hours later, which is a feat. And it is amazing when people do it. And so you're sort of building that level of depth and connection one person at a time. Um, yeah, I mean, I teach mindfulness. I love exercising and love walking. And I'm a singer-songwriter, and I'm also a lover of rural, beautiful places. And so it felt like this would be a way to bring all of these things together and bring some of my own specific skill sets together. And then to hold space for others that might want to have that experience and have a little bit of structure and guidance along the way. And to sort of facilitate, I think of it as facilitating creative process in a community setting. And so we had 10 songwriters on our first one, and we stayed in group dormitories most nights. And we had communal meals, and we did a morning circle of mindfulness meditation before we started walking. And then we offered a prompt. And then people were paired and then sort of started their inspiration. In some cases, they wrote it in one day. In some cases, they wrote it in 2 days, depending on the pacing and our other responsibilities and how much walking we had to do. And yeah, we did it produced some really, really amazing songs. And we had people from France, we had people from across the United States. And then we did a final concert in Villafranca del Bierzo. So we started in Astorga, And we ended in Trabadelo at the amazing Casa Susi. And then we did our concert in Villafranca del Bierzo in this 15th century tower and this old winery, and it was incredibly atmospheric and really, really beautiful. And so we literally wrote these songs or performed these songs that had been written in some cases like the day before, right? So like first debuts, hot off the press, never performed. So you can imagine like what courage and chutzpah that takes to sort of just be like, all right, here it is, world. Here's the song. And
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I want to ask you, so the people that signed up, were they professional songwriters, amateur songwriters, a mixture,
Yeah,
aspiring?
it's a massive mix. And so I always like to say like these the retreats that I lead. So I lead one in Sardinia in Italy, and then I do this one on the Camino. They are open to a pretty broad swath of folks. So they're open to writers, they're open to musicians, they're open to poets, um, they're open to creative scholars, and they're open to songwriters. So that was basically the mix that we got and so a really, really broad variety of levels. And then we provide sort of just enough tools. And then, so the art form, a lot of it is in the pairing, right? So if I know you're a poet, but you don't play an instrument, and I know a fabulous guitarist who maybe isn't as comfortable with the lyric part of things, I'll pair those two people together so that their two skill sets can sort of help them to arrive at a song. And so a lot of it is sort of knowing enough about folks that we can pair them in ways that they can, and then once you do it, you feel sort of invincible in an amazing way. You're like, I wrote a song, and then the next one becomes a lot easier, right? Because you're like, oh no, but I already did it. Like, I know how to do this thing. Yeah.
So were they performing? Well, let's go through what a typical day was like. So you woke up, you did the mindfulness, had breakfast, they set out, they walked, they were writing as they were paired up. And then when you arrived where you were staying, did they perform that day, or were all the performances saved for
So
the end?
it's called like a song circle. So basically the daily schedule is we would do the morning circle, we would walk, we would arrive, get situated, sort of do all the things that pilgrims need to do in your new place, right? Laundry, naps, etc. And then each evening around 6 p.m. we would do a song circle, and that was just for the group. And that was basically, what have you written today? And then offering feedback on the song. So how did it hit you? How did it land with you? And so we would do that as a group. And then we would share dinner together and then do some version of that the next day. So the idea is that it's pretty intimate. And like sometimes if we had an albergue host that we knew well, we would invite them to listen in on the song circle because they might not be able to make it to the final concert. But otherwise, it was just for the participants because it is so raw and so vulnerable, right, to have a song that's just been written. But then and then the final concert is when we opened it up to everybody. And that was like, come and hear these songs. And so that's on the second to last day is the final
Okay.
concert. Yeah.
So how far were you guys walking each day?
It was we do a modified Camino so that we have time to write. So typically it's between 8 and 13 kilometers was sort of our range. So yeah, much less than you would typically be doing.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I would think you would have to, right? Because I was just thinking to myself, boy, if I added in also writing a
Yeah.
song, and yeah, so that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's cut to a song. Some of your participants, two participants wrote a song called Desert in the Storm. Can you tell us a little about those participants and kind of introduce this song? And we'll let everyone hear a sample of the type of song that was written while you were on this walking retreat.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the final concert, this is one of the songs that was performed in the beautiful tower. Um, and so this is a song by Numai and Melissa, and they were paired up as co-writers for a day. And this is the song that they ended up writing. And there were so many beautiful songs. I mean, it's hard. Over 30 songs were written, right, over the course of this retreat. So many beautiful ones. And this one felt like, especially the chorus and the way it opens up in the melody, that it sort of embodied a lot of the beauty that we experienced as a group and in our own group experience of walking along the Camino. And I know there's information about them in the show notes, so you can listen to the song in other places and learn more about their work. But they, yeah, really, really fantastic musicians and songwriters. And yeah.
Yeah, well, let's listen to a little bit of that. Desert in the Storm.
Upon the cloud, upon the stone, upon the arriving, a shimmering pedestal, the stone of uniting. They say there's hope, they say it heals, am I so deserving? Beaten path, a history to walk with those who came before. Over yonder, I can't see what's beyond the bend. One step and another, walk with me till the end.
So, wow, I mean, that's the kind of quality songs that your group was putting out at the end of this. Something else.
I know.
You obviously anticipated that this was a good idea. You knew from walking yourself. But what kinds of things happened that maybe you didn't expect?
Hmm. Let's see. I think, well, lots of serendipities on the Camino. Like, for example, people would be co-writing. I was co-writing. So one of as the retreat facilitator, I also write most days. So I was writing with someone one day, and we were in the middle of coming up with a lyric for the chorus, and then there were these two people walking behind us, and someone shouts out, and they're like, "What about this line?" and then someone else, and it was so cool. And it was actually a really great line because we were stuck on like a certain like trying to find the right rhyme, and so this complete random stranger gave us the song line that ended up working really well. So we got his name down and we gave him song credit. As good songwriters, you always want to credit everyone's ideas. And but that happened in a couple different spaces. I saw some other folks, other pairs that were at actually in El Ganso, and we were hanging out there, and they were in that cafe area, right by Bar Cowboy. And
Yes.
so also there were a couple different instances where people that were sort of at their own table would walk up and be like, "Hey, I have a great song lyric for you," or "Hey, like, how about this verse?" So like it's like spontaneous. But what was so beautiful was to see all these people so invested in the creative process and in songwriting, like so invested that they wanted to like be a part of it, and had like strong ideas and opinions about the way the song should go and all this stuff. So that
It's a
was
beautiful
totally,
pilgrim story.
yeah, it was totally unexpected and kind of amazing. Like, oh, that's what happens when you write a song on the Camino. It becomes a communal shared experience, right? Yeah.
Right.
So co-writes, but in the broadest sense, not just two people, maybe four or five, a whole community. Um, Another thing that was unexpected and really just very special about the texture of the community that was formed in this past year is that we had one of our participants was a songwriter and musician who wrote the well-known song Ultreya.
Yes.
Yeah, Jean-Claude Benazet. And so Jean-Claude taught all the harmonies and everything to the entire group, and we learned it. And so every time we wanted to thank someone, like an albergue host or someone that had shown us love and hospitality, we would gather and sing that song for them. And we also did that song in the final concert. So it was so amazing to perform it with the person that had written it. Like leading us on all the parts, and what a beautiful, beautiful song. The verses are in Occitan, which is a language that he speaks. And so yeah, that was completely unexpected and amazing. So it sort of became like our anthem, like our theme song, for the entire trip.
Wow, I love that.
Mm,
I love sometimes people will say, oh, I don't want to go with a group or that changes the dynamic. But
yes.
what you're talking about is that really you guys had this ready-made family, but there were still other pilgrims participating. There was involvement beyond your group. It was truly a Camino community in so many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And what
Absolutely.
about for you personally as the facilitator? Now this was your second Camino.
Yeah.
You still had to walk.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself that was different maybe than that first walk you did with your partner?
Mm, yeah. Returning felt really good. Returning was like, it was like returning to like this old friend. And I was like,
Mm.
ah, so it felt, A, it felt amazing to return, and B, it felt amazing to bring others. And a number of folks, about half the group had not walked a Camino before. And so, to sort of get to be part of watching their wonder and their beginner's mind, right? As they sort of encounter all of these like spontaneous, random, magical things about the Camino, some of which we can plan and many of which we cannot at all, right? Which is
Yes.
part of that magic. Um, and I left with a sense of what a privilege it was to get to hold the space for all of the participants and the folks that came. And also, there's this thing about co-writing and songwriting when you're writing with others. Always say it's greater than the sum of its parts. Like the song that I write on my own, I could never write the same song with someone else. Like it's by definition completely different when someone else. And so there is a magic in starting a day with no song and then ending a day with a brand new song. And you're like, oh, how did that happen? Like, oh my gosh, I call them song babies. I'm like, there's a new song baby that's been born into the world, right? And like that, witnessing that and also doing it myself, every time there's still like this magic. And watching it be born is very energizing and joy giving, and sort of like it renews me and my sense of faith and connection to the world and to myself and to other human beings. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's like for me, it's like a kind of like a rebirth each time I get to lead a retreat that does this kind of work.
Wow. Well, I can't even imagine, as a pilgrim, I feel like such a sense of accomplishment just walking that day.
Mm.
What a rich layer this would add to end the day, not only with feeling like, oh, I won the day, I finished my walk.
Mm, mm,
I
mm.
met all these people and, all the wonderful, magical things that happen normally on the Camino, but also adding to that, that I have written a psalm, that I have been in community, at least with one other person working on this psalm. How does that feel as a songwriter?
I mean, for me personally, it feels deeply connective. I always say, like, the people that I've written songs with, I have a bond, like typically I have a bond for life. I cannot see them for 10 years and we sort of pick up exactly where we left off. It's a very, very strong, and many of them I've, gone on to tour with and record with and sort of do many other forms of collaboration with, playing bands with. Um, yeah, it's a really there's a wonderful Swedish songwriter that refers to co-writing. Her name is Annika Feiling. She refers to co-writing as breaking isolation. It's this idea that we're forced out of our comfort zone and to deeply connect with someone else. And sometimes until we do that, we don't even necessarily know how lonely we are, right? Or we don't fully understand our own senses of isolation until we have experienced that level of connection again, right? And then it's like, oh. And I think the other part I would add, and one of the reasons I personally, as an artist, love co-writing and this method of songwriting so much, is that it's one of the main places in my own life where I feel truly seen by someone else, right? Seen and heard, showing up just as I am. And I don't feel like, I'll speak for my own life experience, I don't feel like there are necessarily many places in our lives where we get to do that or have that. And so to me, those are sort of sacred, right? Like you find those and it's like, oh, okay, I will do anything I can to create it for myself. And I'll do anything I can to sort of create that space for others to experience that, because I think that ripples out into
Yes.
all aspects of our life, right? When we come back from the Camino, in our art making, in how we think about what it means to live a creative life and creative process, right? It's not just about writing a song. It's about the beautiful cake you decorated, or the way you set the table, or, the way that you cut your flowers, or like all of those things, I think, are part of this bundle, right? So it's about reconnecting to that and giving it time and space.
Mm. And I'm wondering, Christina, is that one of the things that calls us back? Is that being
Mm,
seen, that being heard, that being able to see and hear? It's like
mm.
this unique experience that I haven't experienced as an adult, really, in many other places other than being on the Camino.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I do think I would say for myself, certainly yes. And I would also say, the Camino cultivates sort of a certain subculture that allows for the slowing down of time and space and sort of allowing it to be and feel more expansive. And like, what a beautiful sacred thing that is, right? And so I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, thanks for articulating that. It's like you find that, of course you're going to go back to it, right? Like these precious things, and you find them, and they're rare. And also, like the work you're doing in your podcast, like the cultivating that for others and giving back to others, and sort of the spirit of reciprocity that the Camino engenders is so sort of baked into its ethos, its deepest ethos. And that is a very beautiful thing. So this idea of that we each have value, right? And use, and we have skills that we can offer and be seen in that way too, whatever that skill set might be in the Camino, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And we all have a story.
And we all have a story. And like, what a beautiful thing to get to share that story and have it be witnessed, right?
Yes.
Whether that's a poem or a song, or walking alongside someone for a full day and just feeling fully heard without judgment, and having, feeling like you're really being listened to. Yeah.
Priceless.
Mm, mm.
So you're doing another Camino walk with a group this October. So tell us a little bit about, I'm sure people are listening right now, like sign me up. So
Mm.
how do people apply to come, and what kind of background would match best for someone who thinks they might be interested in doing
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, so we're running another one, and registration is open. It's from October 7th through 20th. Same locations, beginning in Astorga and ending in Trabadelo. We're doing a concert. And so you can learn a lot more about it on my website, which is singmebackhomesongwriting.com. And who is it best adapted to? I would say if you are a musician, if you are a writer, if you are a poet, if you are someone that wants to simply connect back to your own sense of creativity and creative process, or if that is feeling dormant, right? Like you knew you had it at one point, but maybe we got busy and and it sort of went out the window. This can be a wonderful way. So you don't have to be a songwriter, and you don't even have to be a musician. You need to have the desire to show up fully in a group setting and have a Camino experience that is, by definition, in a small group. So we interact with other pilgrims for sure, but the primary community we're building is between and among each other. So that's important, that sort of appeals, and that's not everyone's Camino for sure. And the desire to sort of throw yourself in fully to writing a song a day with a new person that you maybe had never met before you showed up in Spain. So the desire, one of the big sort of things about the retreats I lead is this idea of cross-cultural, intercultural communication. So like this one is led bilingually in Spanish and English. So that's a big part of it is, we're very excited to have more Spanish participants, and songs can show up in any language. So they can be in Spanish, they can be in Occitan, they can be in English, whatever. I always say, whatever serves the song, right? So like, what is the song telling you? What's the story you want to tell? And how do you best execute or tell that story? So yeah, folks can, there's a contact form on my website, which basically asks you a series of questions about why you want to participate in your musical experience and what's calling you about this specific place and this specific retreat. And then we do a Zoom interview from there.
Wonderful. I will have your website link in the show notes so people can easily go and find that. And how many spots are available for this particular walk in
We
October?
have 10 spots.
10 spots. Okay, so folks, they're going to go fast for sure after people hear this show, for sure after the American Pilgrims on the Camino gathering as more people meet you. So, folks, if you're interested, make sure you check out the website and get your application completed because this sounds amazing. I wish I were a singer-songwriter. I would sign up right away. It sounds fantastic. Well, how about we go out with a song that you wrote? And this one is called I Am a Pilgrim. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. This one I started writing earlier on. This was still, the chorus reflects my questioning mindset of like, is this worth it? And why am I doing this? Right? So the chorus is will I find it? I don't know. It being the thing, the reason I'm doing this, the sort of the shift, the transformation I'm looking for, whatever that is. Will I find it? I don't know. Each person walks their own camino. La fortaleza más grande el amor y buen camino peregrino. And la fortaleza más grande el amor is lifted literally off the wall of the convent in Fromista, where on the side of it, it was written inside the dining area. La fortaleza más grande el amor, the greatest fortress is love, right? And I was writing and I was stuck on a line and I looked up and I saw that and I was like, oh, that's pretty beautiful. And worked with the theme of the song in many ways. But yeah, so it's a song inspired by becoming a pilgrim, by being sort of a wandering itinerant musician in some ways, and my identity in the way that I lead my life, and also by being a traveler and sort of identifying as a world traveler. So each verse explores a kind of different parts of what I was looking for. And then in the end, it says, will I find it? Guess I'll know. I guess I'll know, and so I was the idea when I was writing the song was let go of all the questioning. It's okay to just, I'll know when I know. And so arriving at some sort of sense of closure or peace yeah.
Sounds like you found that.
Yeah, I think I did. I feel very blessed to sort of have arrived at some of the places that I did. I mean, it's for all of us, it's an ongoing journey, right? I wouldn't say it's like a one and done, but but 100%. It gave me so much. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to meet you in person at the annual gathering, and I so appreciate you coming on the show. We're going to close out with your original song, I Am a Pilgrim. Dr. Kristina Jacobsen, thank you for coming to the Camino Cafe podcast.
Thank you, Lee. Much obliged.
I am a pilgrim seeking ground beneath my feet, seeking hearts, seeking hands, seeking wholeness. I am a troubadour seeking sounds beneath my skin, seeking stories, seeking soul, seeking stillness. Will I find it? I don't know. Each person walks their own camino. La fortaleza más grande amor y buen camino peregrino. I am a traveler seeking new selves inside the old one, seeking solace, seeking sky, seeking sustenance. And will I find
this interview. Thanks for listening, and please check out our weekly Camino news updates. We have a new show for you every Wednesday. Now stick around and listen to the featured songs we talked about during the interview today. Please take care and see you next week.
Guided by the yellow arrow, click of sticks, keeping time to my heart. Sword, feeling heart. Put on my shoes again, just walk Castro heavy, Castilla, delay. Sun beats down, blisters on my heels. Cantadilla en la vuelta. Sword, healing heart. Old mountain stream pulls my calves. Trabadero, albergue precioso.
There's hope, they say it heals. Am I so deserving? Beaten path of history to walk with those who came before. Over yonder, I can't see what's beyond the bend. One step and another, walk with me till the end. Distant thunder. The journey, a desert and the storm. They say there's hope, they say it heals. Am I so deserving? A beaten path, a history to walk with those who came before. Over yonder, I can't see what's beyond the bend. One step and another, walk with me till the end. Distant thunder, face it on, nowhere else to turn. Love for the journey, a desert in the storm. Over yonder, I can't see what's beyond the bend. One step and another, walk with me till the end. Distant thunder, face it on, nowhere else to turn. Love for the journey, a desert in the storm.